This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you so much for joining us on this Wednesday, August 11th. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, it is the beginning of a battle over the Democrats' enormous budget. They say it will help families and create jobs. Republicans warn the tax increases and big spending will hurt the economy. New York gets ready for a new governor now that Andrew Cuomo has resigned following devastating allegations of sexual harassment. While the government of Iran calls for death to Israel, some in that country feel very differently. We're going to bring you the story of Iranian dissidents who showed their support for the Jewish state by traveling to Israel. And we're going to tell you about a very special feature we've got coming up tomorrow on the Christian faith of American Olympic athletes. All those stories and more are ahead in today's edition of CBN NewsWatch. We begin this half hour in Washington, where Democrats push through the framework for their huge $3.5 trillion budget through the Senate overnight.
The yeas are 50, the nays are 49, and the concurrent resolution as amended is agreed to.
The measure passed along party lines, with Democrats supporting it and Republicans opposing it. One Republican senator was absent. Democrats and the president say the budget, led by Democratic Socialist Bernie Sanders, will help families fight climate change and create jobs. Republicans say it will waste money, hurt the economy with high taxes, fuel inflation, and put into place far-left mandates that will hurt Americans. The House will take up the budget plan in 2 weeks. Turning now to New York, Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul will become the state's first female governor in 2 weeks after Governor Andrew Cuomo's resignation takes effect. The governor making the announcement Tuesday, 1 week after the state attorney general's bombshell report accusing him of sexually harassing nearly a dozen women. Cuomo said an impeachment process would be expensive and take weeks, so he said he decided to resign instead. CBN White House correspondent Eric Phillips has our report.
The best way I can help now is if I step aside and let government get back to governing. And therefore, that's what I'll do.
Embattled New York Governor Andrew Cuomo resigning, effective in 2 weeks. The announcement coming a week after a damning state attorney general investigative report accusing him of sexually harassing 11 women. Cuomo called the report unfair and untruthful.
This is about politics.
The governor stepping aside and offering apologies, though not admitting to the allegations. He explained that while trying to be friendly, he inadvertently acted in a way that was too familiar.
In my mind, I've never crossed the line with anyone. This is not to say that there are not 11 women who I truly offended. There are. And for that, I deeply, deeply apologize. There are generational and cultural shifts that I just didn't fully appreciate. And I should have. No excuses.
Cuomo made the public announcement moments after his attorney spoke out to poke holes in the AG's report.
The investigators acted as the prosecutors, the judge, and the jury of Governor Cuomo.
Reaction to Cuomo's announcement was swift, even coming from President Biden himself, who was among the chorus of leaders calling for the governor to resign.
I respect the governor's decision, and I respect the decision he made. He's done a hell of a job. And I mean, both on everything from access to voting to infrastructure, to a whole range of things. That's why it's so sad.
New York Attorney General Letitia James said, "Today closes a sad chapter for all of New York, but it's an important step towards justice." And one of the governor's first accusers, Lindsey Boylan, tweeted, "I am thankful for the Attorney General, the investigators, and all those who have pursued the truth despite intimidation and threats of retaliation. There is absolutely no joy in any of this. It is a tragedy, just a massive, heartbreaking tragedy for so many." The governor ended his remarks with personal words to 3 women close to his heart, his own daughters.
I want them to know from the bottom of my heart that I never did and I never would intentionally disrespect a woman or treat any woman differently than I would want them treated.
Eric Phillips, CBN News.
Turning now to the West Coast, where more than 900,000 acres in California have gone up in smoke this year. That's some 200% more than this time last year, much of it due to the Dixie Fire that destroyed nearly 1,000 homes and buildings. The destruction is also bringing out the best in people as ministries are reaching out to help those devastated. CBN's Charlene Aaron brings us this story.
Dixie's flames have blazed a path of destruction, with close to 500,000 acres burned so far. The out-of-control fire is being fueled by recent hot, dry conditions, and as the threat nears, residents are fleeing for their lives. The explosive Dixie Fire, named for the road where it ignited, is just 25% contained. Bone-dry conditions and strong winds could make the blaze even more combustible. Homes and other buildings have been destroyed, the fire gutting the small town of Greenville. Residents forced to leave everything behind as they fled their homes.
Left behind a lot of stuff. Fires ravaged through everything.
It's scary when you sit there and see all the smoke coming over the mountain and wonder, where's it at? Because you can't see it.
CBN's Operation Blessing is working closely with relief partners in and around areas burned by the flames. One of those is Bethel Global Response.
What we saw there was devastating. The families have often lived there for multi-generations, and the families' homes are often owned outright, and they've been there since they were born.
Bethel is working to support families both physically and spiritually.
We're offering something called ash outs, which is sifting through the ashes of the home that was lost in order to find valuables that are still intact within the footprint of the home that can be given back to the survivors.
With so many fires burning across the state in recent years, Bethel has grown accustomed to the much-needed ministry.
We get prepared for this all year long, and it is anticipated, and it has been happening pretty consistently recently. We are geared up for this. We have responded to the salt fire recently just north of Reading here in town.
A staff of volunteers making a huge difference in the toughest of times.
People who are servant-hearted, like Jesus is a servant, are those who give their time and their energy and their resources to relieve the suffering of others. And so they are motivated by the compassion of Jesus, by the kindness they've felt from him and the desire to give that away.
And signs of God's love and faithfulness abound in the ashes.
It is so good to see the faithfulness of the Lord from the front seat of a disaster situation. Continually, you see his provision, his abundance, his specificity and loving people well, and the overarching compassion of humans loving one another in his name. And you don't find a place where he isn't in the midst of disaster. He is the one loving the survivors, he is the one comforting them, and he is the one counseling them.
Meanwhile, California is on track to surpass last year, which had the worst fire season in recent recorded state history. Since the start of the year, more than 6,000 blazes have destroyed more than 1,200 square miles of land. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
From there, we turn overseas now, where the Taliban has seized 3 more provincial capitals in Afghanistan and an army headquarters. The Islamic radicals now control some 2/3 of the entire country. CBN contributor Chuck Holton has spent nearly 2 decades covering the conflict in Afghanistan, and he recently filed this report.
The Taliban has moved swiftly to control parts of Afghanistan after coalition troops abandoned bases they've used for decades. The U.S. Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, admits it doesn't look good.
There clearly is a narrative out there that the Taliban are winning. In fact, they are propagating an inevitable victory on their behalf. They're dominating a lot of the airwaves on that sort of thing.
And Afghans who worked for NATO fear for their lives.
We are not safe. The Taliban, they're telling us, your brothers leaving soon your country, and we will kill all of you guys that have worked with the U.S. forces.
Hundreds of Afghan interpreters are begging for asylum outside the last remaining U.S. base in Kabul. And the former commander of Bagram Air Base says they've earned it.
We have got to move those interpreters or translators, all the people that aided America for 20 years, move them out of that country and give them a life in America, right? They earned it.
Schlesser details his 15 months in Afghanistan in his new book, Marathon War.
We effectively decided that we were going to end the combat portion of the war several years ago.
And his outlook on the future of Afghanistan is grim.
Civil war, Taliban regains a lot of the control of the country. Eventually, it will have all of it, I think, over time, maybe a year, maybe 2 years. I don't think that the Afghan army will be able to hold against the Taliban. But you're going to see this human diaspora, much larger than the one that we are currently contemplating with our interpreters and their families.
Despite the Taliban resurgence, Schlesser doesn't believe American blood and treasure were wasted there.
For 20 years, we have not been attacked by al-Qaeda on our soil. That alone meant sacrifices that were important, and we should not forget that.
Chuck Holton, CBN News.
Coming up, the government of Iran would like to destroy Israel, but not all Iranians agree. Some Iranian dissidents recently traveled to Israel to show their support for the Jewish state. We're going to bring you their story when we come back.
Yeah, buddy.
How many nickels are in a dollar?
There are 20 nickels in a dollar.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times bestselling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts, in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain, get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
Death to Israel. That is the usual rallying cry from Iran. But recently, a group of Iranians made history by traveling to Israel to show their support for the Jewish people and their rejection of the rulers of Iran. Chris Mitchell brings us this report now from Jerusalem on their extraordinary visit.
These demonstrators in southwestern Iran are protesting the government's decision to limit their water supply. Several people have been killed, and more protests have spread throughout the country, calling for regime change.
As we heard on the streets of Iran, people were shouting against Iranian government. Israel is not our enemy, America is not our enemy, you are referring to Iranian regime are our enemy. People inside Iran, they realize who's their enemy, and they are trying to do their best to get rid of the Iranian regime.
While these protests continue inside the country, these Iranians, some of them Muslims, are showing support on their first visit to Israel. This group came with the Institute for Voices of Liberty, which is dedicated to encouraging democracy in Iran. Ellie Cohenim's family fled the republic when she was 5 years old.
They want to mark history. They are here to tell the people of Israel that they support them and they reject the Iranian regime's anti-Semitism and genocidal desire to wipe Israel off the face of the earth.
In 1979, the revolution led by Ayatollah Khomeini turned Iran from a pro-Western power to a country dedicated to destroying Israel and spreading its Islamic beliefs worldwide. These Iranians call the past 42 years an aberration in Iran's long history.
Unfortunately, this regime is at war with Iranian history, culture, civilization, and most importantly, Iranian values of tolerance and acceptance. We're here to make it very clear to the people of Israel that the Iranian people stand with the people of Israel and that we condemn the regime in Iran, which is an occupying force.
For the past year, the world has heard about the Abraham Accords. One of the goals of this mission is to let people know about what they call the Cyrus Accords.
Abraham Accords, of course, as everybody here knows, is a peace agreement between Israel and its Arab neighbors. We feel that just as that peace was hard to believe that it would happen, and it did happen, Cyrus Accords, a deal between Israel and a future free democratic Iran, is possible as well.
These accords are named after the Persian king who allowed the Jews to rebuild the Second Temple in Jerusalem.
And so the Iranian people believe that for 2,500 years there were warm relations between the people of Israel and people of Iran.
My story is really the prime example of that. You know, the Iranian Jews, we were one of the most ancient Jewish communities in the world. We lived side by side our neighbors for over 2,500 years. I am Iranian culturally. You know, my heart is still with my brothers and sisters in the country. And so this regime that came in 1979, they are a complete aberration. They preach hatred, but the people are rejecting it.
Ahmed Batabi served 2 years in an Iranian jail as a political prisoner.
The main message is we are not your enemy. We love you. We can be not necessarily friend. We can be brother. We have a lot of cultural values that we can make a good Middle East with these values.
Although the mission traveled throughout the country, they felt it significant as Iranians to visit Jerusalem, the city a once great Persian ruler helped to rebuild.
I wish you could have seen the awe that various delegates saw when they walked in the city of David, when they heard the history that stems through from Cyrus the Great, through various millennia, and how much the two people have in common. And I think it just reinforced the reason why they came here, and we hope that this is not a one-off, that this is a beginning of a long-term process which inevitably ends up in peace and prosperity for both people right after they sign the Cyrus Accords, of course.
In the meantime, their hearts remain back home.
Lots of my countrymen inside Iran, which I talk to them, I read their messages, they are hoping, they are desperate, and they're waiting every minute, every second for the dismantlement of the Iranian Islamic Republic.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, the Western Wall, Jerusalem.
Still ahead, the long wait is over. The highly anticipated film Respect hits theaters this week. The director of this chapter of the Aretha Franklin story joins us next for a behind-the-scenes look at the making of the movie and its message for the audience.
Region's first ROTC graduate student.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
A highly anticipated summer film hits theaters this week, and there's already Oscar buzz around it. Respect takes an intimate look at a very significant chapter of the life of the legendary Aretha Franklin. Before her death, the Queen of Soul handpicked Jennifer Hudson for the leading role. And the film's director, Liesl Tommy, tells CBN News Hudson was the perfect choice. How would you say your theater background prepared you for this project?
I love music, and I've done a lot of musicals, and I've done a lot of plays with music, and I've also been in a lot of rehearsal rooms with musicians. I love when you can sit in songs a little longer than you usually can in biopics. I love when the lyrics are actually furthering the storytelling. And I also, you know, the scenes in the film where you see the songs being made in the studio or in, you know, at home when she's just at the piano.
Okay.
Those are experiences that I've had in my life, you know, working with musicians, and I just felt like that. Those are pieces that I don't always see in these kinds of movies.
How would you describe this stretch of her career? She had such a long-lasting career, and we see this stretch in this film. How would you describe this phase of her life?
Well, you know, it's a very rich and complex phase, which is why I wanted to focus on it when she was in her 20s. You know, when I pitched the film, I pitched it as a movie about a woman with the greatest voice in the world who was struggling to find her own voice. And, you know, she had all those albums when she was, you know, in her early 20s that no one liked.
Until you find the songs that move you, you ain't going nowhere.
But then when she moved to work with the producer, Jerry Wexler, things changed and she changed and she really started to figure out what she liked.
This song goes out to anyone who's ever felt mistreated.
Everybody assumes that she just, you know, landed as and was a superstar. She had to go on a journey. She faced failure. She was, you know, really afraid of not making it. And I thought that was such an important and inspiring part of her story.
What did you wish for?
More hits.
I learned a lot about the gospel album, which I still to this day, I remember hearing as a kid being played in my house. And that was such a critical moment. Tell me about, I guess, the story behind that project that touched you.
Her decision, after years of successful popular music, to go and record a gospel album was a radical decision. And I just think it's such a testament to her faith and her belief in herself, where she said, this is going to happen or I will leave this, you know, this studio and go somewhere else, because she knew it was the right thing for her at that time. And in the end, that album was one of her most successful albums. You know, it captured the imagination and the hearts of people all over the world.
I believe I have the chills.
Do you see what she is? She's a miracle.
Respect hits theaters on Friday. Studio 5 has a 30-minute behind-the-scenes look at the film coming up next week. Tonight, recording artist Tamala Mann is our guest in Studio 5, and the stars of the film Coda, Children of Deaf Adults, are with us as well. That's Oscar winner Marlee Matlin and Troy Kotzer. You can catch an all-new Studio 5 at 8:30 Eastern on the CBN News Channel or on the CBN News app. Coming up, we're going to share with you a very special program we have coming up tomorrow about the Christian faith of some of America's famous Olympic athletes. You don't want to miss it. We'll have that for you when we come back. Stay with us.
To have a sex before you marry is a bad idea.
Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire. Monday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Thursday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
We have something special for you on tomorrow's edition of CBN NewsWatch. With the Olympics just wrapped up, we're going to talk about the faith of several of the athletes. We'll have a CBN News special interview with Sports Spectrum's John Ackerman, who covered the games and the faith of these amazing athletes. So be sure to join us tomorrow for that on CBN News and Spectrum Sports. We'll have that interview for you. It's time now for your Wednesday word, and today's word is help. Remember this: look up and know your help comes from God. That truth allows you to also look out and extend a helping hand to those who may not know Him. With that word, I encourage you to make today a wonderful Wednesday and push to make this a wonderful rest of the week. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. You can always find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com at any time. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com, the address right there at the bottom of your screen. You can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We would love to hear from you. Hope you'll join us right back here, same time tomorrow. Make it a wonderful Wednesday. We'll see you then.